my experience and what I've learned, and I would also really, really welcome any of your experiences. So one of the things in particular when we're talking about quantum is the scalar wave. Now, I put a picture of the dome on the top of the information about now. And the reason for that is that inside a dome, you have a scalar wave that circulates and actually comes through the pineal and starts resetting the body. Now, how do we know this and how do we validate this? The architect that helped me, I have a dome at the center where my home is, and he showed me pictures, and I'll get them, of people walking out of four-cornered flat ceiling rooms. There's an infrared picture, and then he showed me pictures of people walking out of a 5, 6, 7, 8-sided room with the dome, and the aura is completely extended, which is indicating a healing aspect. So that's my own validation and verification of actually being in a dome space. The energy is, you can actually feel the energy, but more importantly, many of the churches we all know have got domes, the temples, the mosques, etc. And there's a reason for that too. It's because of the energy and the clearing that the energy does. And you won't find bacteria and viruses and things in those ancient buildings simply because of the shape of the dome and the scalar wave that gets set up of high frequency, so warding off bacteria, viruses, parasites, etc. And I thought, you know, that's quite interesting for us being in the quantum space and speaking about scalar wave. I don't know if anybody has got anything they want to add to that right now, but just unmute yourself and I will see straight away. So that's very important. If you can get into spaces, not really now with lockdown, but even a makeshift dome in your own bedroom, it's going to assist with that. So speaking still about the churches and talking about the bells that ring. So bells that ring also create a space that's going to clear and refresh the space, if you like, and build up our vibration. That's why we like music and we like the bells, the ancient singing bowls and things like that are quite valuable as well, insofar as raising the vibration of a room and clearing. So I make use of those to raise my vibration and to clear the space energetically. And yeah, I find that very useful as well. Just going back to the 8-sided shape, when I was in Russia, I went to a place called RKM, and this is in the Urals, and it's I suppose you could say a sacred site. There is a buried wooden golden mean city that the ancients lived in, and it's completely covered over, but they are starting to, from an archaeological point of view, try and open it up and see how the whole thing hung together. And this is in the golden mean shape, and there are specific what we call in South Africa a rondavel, which is a roundhouse with a thatch dome-shaped top. So I saw exactly the same buildings there, houses, dwellings, if you like. Also saw the same ones at Stonehenge in the UK. So when we went into one of these dwellings at RKM and we looked up and we saw the 8-sided trusses that were leading up to the top, there was an opening at the top. Now, it gets absolutely freezing. I'm talking about -30, etc. in the Urals where RKM is. And there's this opening at the top. And that opening, for some reason, the snow and the rain and everything don't fall through there. And it's also below the fire, so the smoke will go up through the fire as well. So these 8-sided dwellings are very much part of our ancestral makeup, our DNA. Just to say that, and we moved out of that into 4-walled flat ceiling rooms, which actually drain our energy, they drain our electrons. So that's an important thing. If anybody wants to say anything, please do. Moving on from that, we've talked about earthing and grounding before, and again, it's about electrons. I've really studied this, and I've told you all before, I've made earthing mats. So I actually have examples of earthing mats and measured the voltage on them. And this is the Sherman's resonance for the skio practitioners here that we talk of in the skio, in the universal risk panel. So we need to just go back a few steps. The earth is made up of colloids, which are of soil, which are negatively charged. Okay, so these negatively charged colloids are what attract the calcium, the magnesium, all the positively charged minerals that the plant can then take up. So the earth has to be in that charge. Now, when we're living on a daily basis, we are possibly eating processed foods, possibly getting involved with road rage, possibly getting involved with family entanglements, possibly not sleeping properly, and all the rest of it that goes on, sitting on the Wi-Fi a lot, living possibly near a Wi-Fi station. So that means that our body becomes excessively positively charged because the atmosphere is positively charged. And that positive charge has a directly negative effect on every single one of our cells, our cell division, and the resonance of our bodies. So in order to trump that, if you like, or throw it out, we need to be on the earth. We need to be on the earth with bare feet. Even our heads, Rudolf Steiner says, put your head on the ground. And this is healing because immediately we absorb the negative electrons, and that balances us and puts us in a 0 voltage charge, which is the Sherman's resonance. So minimum of 30 minutes a day outside, preferably in nature, and the sun, we'll talk about that in a moment, but bare feet. Why not inside? Simply because we have a damp proofing inside, and that blocks the electrons coming through. So the best is to be on a concrete veranda or pathway or grass or soil. And even better if it's a bit wet, because, for example, along the seashore, the electrons come through even quicker and we get grounded very quicker. So the term grounding means that we are on a 0 voltage. Simple as that. And then we can have a visible insurance space around us, which I always refer to ward off the electromagnetic frequencies. So there's also a lovely book written about grounding and everything, where they show the effects, Clint Oberholzer, the effects of grounding and 30 minutes on the ground, and what it does to pain and inflammation. And that's very important to us as therapists. So the one picture shows, I can just get it, hold on. The one picture is showing us, let me just get it, a lady or man, whoever, who has been, the blue is before the grounding, and the high energy yellow and red is after the grounding period of 30 minutes. Okay, so you can see the inflammation has gone down where the arrows are pointing to you. So those are thermal pictures showing us what happens, and there's commensurate reduction in the pain as well. And there's lots more pictures on that. There's also pictures that show us this, for example, diabetic hands and feet before and afters. So it brings back the electrical charge into parts of the body that are where it's missing. But even more importantly, have a look at this graph here. This is the incidence of diabetes and inflammatory disease, and the increase in us wearing rubber-soled shoes. An exponential increase in inflammation in the body because we are not grounded. So our shoes used to be made of leather soles. And I really, really battle, and I always look for shoes with a leather sole, because with a little bit of the moisture from our feet perspiring, if it's a leather sole, we will get grounding coming through, and that's how we used to be. And in the early 1950s, they brought in the rubber-soled trainer, however you call that shoe in your country. So these are studies that have been done. And another important one that I always refer to as well, and having a microscope too, if you can have a look at these live blood pictures, you see there that on this side it's before the grounding, and on this side it's after the grounding. You can see the red blood cells completely opening up and developing what they call the zeta potential. So that zeta potential is what we're aiming for. We want the red blood cells to be separated, not stuck together, as an indication of the rest of the cells in our body as well. Now, this is again direct indication of what grounding does. And I've done these experiments on people before and after with my microscope, and it's phenomenal. It's absolutely phenomenal. I sleep with one of these grounding mats. I have one in my car. So you use a crocodile clip. I explained it in last week's talk, where you clip it to some metal underneath your seat, and the car is earthed by the battery of the car. So while I'm driving, I'm earthed. I actually use I'll show you here. It's just fallen off behind the table. But there's a little wrist pad that goes on here. So it's a little wrist mat, and that wrist mat is as good as the anti-static mat while I'm driving, and it's on a coiled cable. So then I'm protected there. And one thing you'll notice specifically when you're grounded is improvement in sleep. It's absolutely amazing. And what I've noticed is the shift in the white blood cells in particular, before and afterwards. The white blood cell becomes much bigger and far more active, and moves across the screen in a far more active way, clearing the matter in the blood that shouldn't be there. So I like to always get some validation on a hard validation on anything that I do. So the grounding is terribly important. And while you're grounding, of course, you would be in nature outside. So you would be getting the sun's rays, visible and invisible, from far infrared right across to near infrared, and all the sun's rays. So the sun's rays in the body work together, and that the body knows if it needs to absorb the yellow frequency to fix the liver, it will automatically. If it needs to absorb the other color for the kidneys, it will do that as well. So the sun will heal us. It will also boost our immune system. Not too much, obviously. And I'm not saying go out there and burn your skin and anything, but normal, gentle in the sun. If you need to have your hat on, do that. It's going to feed us from the ray point of view. Those are electrons. Those are powerful, powerful electrons. Those are the electrons that the plants absorb in their leaves to produce, to photosynthesize and to produce glucose. Right. So we do have the ability to photosynthesize, and I refer again to Rudolf Steiner, where he speaks about this ability of our body in the skin. We have the receptor sites. It's just that we've got very used to a gross form of acquiring electrons as food, which is food. So just to let you know that being in the sun is a form of feeding ourselves. And the more we're in the sun, the less hungry we get, the less food we actually need. And similarly from nature and the leaves, because they have also got spaces around them for people who can see that. And that energetic field feeds us as well. So very nice from that point of view. Sun, nature, the grounding. And then, of course, we can talk about water to reset ourselves and boost our immune system. So, and And I'll come back to food as well, because I want to talk about leukocytosis, which is when the white blood cells fight the cooked food. Well, let me talk about that right now, and then we'll go to water. There are also lots of studies showing that, and you can also show it on the microscope. When we eat cooked food, all right, the food takes on a molecular shape and form, microwave food, gas cooked food, whatever, boiled, that is difficult for the body to automatically recognize. So what happens is that we're using our valuable immune system to go and fight, if you like, the foreign invading matter in the body. So that's why there's a lot of talk about eating raw food. And I believe we need to have everything in balance, and it's up to each individual person. But just to know that raw food is in food state, right? And the body can automatically recognize it. Yes, it will have to deal with certain chemicals and fertilizers if it's not 100% organic, etc. But it is in the raw form to start with. Easy for the body to assimilate. We want to reduce the energy load of the body to acquire nutrition in the form of electrons. So raw food is easier, and that's where the food state 365 healthy by choice products come in, because they are in the food state, and they're also highly nutrient dense. And I spoke about that before. So if you've got your atom with the proton and the neutron in the middle and the electron spinning around, the tighter that spin is to the proton and the neutron, the higher the frequency of those electrons. So with the food state, high nutrient dense foods, let me talk about bee pollen, royal jelly, blue-green algae, reishi mushroom, chaga mushroom, cordyceps, lion's manes, those kind of ones. They raise the bar compared to normal food. Very tight electron spin, very fast spin, and that energetically is going to raise our cell vitality. It's going to keep our bioresonance in the 1000 to 1500 space, which it's supposed to be. So these are all things. If we keep ourselves balanced and in check, we're going to have a very strong immune system, able to ward off, whether it's 5G, whether it's COVID, whether it's fear, whether it's stress. We have a solid space in which we're working. And I spoke last time about the golden mean. And this is what we're doing. This is what happens when we're inside that dome. It reestablishes our golden mean. When we eat food state nutrients, it reestablishes the golden mean. Grounding will reestablish the golden mean. Being in nature, being in the sun. These are things that reestablish that. When you do that, your physical, neurological, emotional, and spiritual bodies are all in alignment. It's very, very, very important. Moving on to water. Another aspect here as well is most of us have access to tap water. Now, tap water has been recycled many times, possibly in these times now not filtered as well as it should. We all know that certain things aren't filtered out of the water, for example, drugs, for example, hormones from the oral contraceptive. So whether we like it or not, structure-wise is one thing, but also the contaminants in normal tap water are there. So there's a couple of ways of restoring our water and restructuring it ourselves. We could take 2 glasses, 2 tumblers, and pour, create a vortex, right? Which a vortex we all know is scalar. We all know it's the golden mean. Restructure the water. As we pour, we could pour for about 5 minutes, restructuring that water. Okay, when you look at that water, however they do it, you will see that it's more structured. What does structured water mean? Water is made up of triangles that need to fit into each other completely. If they are doing that, then the bacteria and the viruses and that can't stay. They have to move out. They have to be eliminated. So we want to have structured water. That makes sense to you. We want a perfect lattice of triangles, closely all fitting interconnected to each other. That is how spring water appears, and this is where we get our information from nature. So spring water is perfectly in the lattice triangle structure. That means it has the golden mean frequency, it has life force, because first of all, spring water cannot rise up against levity and come out at the top of the hill if it's not ready, if it doesn't have enough Ormus. And that's why I have Ormus Gold as part of my toolkit, because Ormus Gold, that life force levitational frequency that allows the spring water to rise up to the top of a hill and then come down, is due to Ormus. And we need that. Our bodies, our cells, our tissues, our intracellular space all needs Ormus. Ormus creates that zeta potential. Okay, so spring water is our guide. The pH is 7.4. Check your bottle. If it says spring water, pH of 8, no. At one stage, there was a shop selling spring water with pH of 4. It can't be. It's just not possible. pH of 4 is acidic. All right. So alkaline, spring water is slightly alkaline. It's exactly the pH of our blood. If you go to the Tsitsikamma forest or the spring in Cape Town or the spring in Albertsville in Johannesburg, these are all top springs. If you go Google springs of the world, you'll find them there. Okay, and you take that water, you measure the pH, it will be 7.4. And it's going to have certain physical properties. Let me explain these to you. If I put a drop of sesame oil or any oil into a glass tumbler of spring water and I stir it, guess what happens? That oil gets suspended in that water and never comes out. It actually dissolves into and becomes water soluble in the spring water. And I urge you to go and do that and see for yourself. Take a tumbler of tap water, some spring water, obviously, if you can get hold of it in this time, and have a look and see. So tap water, it's going to remain in globular form. If it does mix, it's going to come straight out. Spring water will not do it. I've left the tumbler there for over a day. So think about that when we consume spring water. In exactly the golden mean, exactly the structure that the body can assimilate right there and then. So people come in and tell me they drink, but Jane, I drink 3 liters of water a day. How can I be dehydrated? It's easy. If the water's not in the structure that's geared specifically for absorption in the food state form, if you like the natural state, the body's going to have difficulty in absorbing it. The body has to rearrange it using its own electrons, its own forces, into the form that it can then absorb. If you eat fruit that's not ripened, the same thing. The body has to rearrange the fruit into the right structure using its energy and electrons and sometimes the immune system, the white blood cells, to get it into the form so we can use it. So we need to be very aware of keeping our dynamic equilibrium, and that's just some of the information that I'm sharing with you today specifically. So I also did these assessments on alkaline water. I have an alkaline machine, and that water pH 9.5. The oil globule dissolved, but also came out. I also have something called a water activator, which is a cylinder. Looks quite similar to an oxygen cylinder, and it's coated with rock dust, quartz, and organite. It's got a magnet on the top and the bottom. It's got a copper pipe that runs through it, which you attach to your mains with L-shaped little connections. And then coming down, it's got spirals. So it's called a water activator. When the water passes through these frequencies, we've talked about paramagnetic rock before. We can talk about the rock crystal as well, the quartz that they use, and we can talk about organite another time. We know about magnets, paramagnetic rock as well, and we know about spirals, also from Rudolf Steiner. So when the water goes through this activator, if you like, it comes out and it has the density of spring water. How can I explain that? If you take a mouthful of spring water and you hold it in your mouth, you will find, and it will feel dense, heavier than normal tap water, and it will be a little bit feel oily. And this activated water does the same. It rearranges the structure of the water. And I can send you lots of information on this. These devices are made in Cape Town, these activators. And where they've looked at the structure of the water, they've looked at the density of the water. And once when my children were eating and we were using activated water, someone bumped one of the glasses and the water never fell out. And my son made a comment and he said, "Mom, this water is more dense than normal tap water because tap water would have fallen out of the glass." So I'm just saying he made a comment on that, but you can actually feel it in your mouth as well. And when people then move and start drinking 3 liters of structured water, suddenly the hydration improved. You don't need 3 liters. You can easily then do with 1.5 to 2 liters. and a further story indicating the wettability of the water. This is what it's called. It's called it improves the wettability. The same people who make these devices in Cape Town gave a demo model to Albany bread making company, and their yield increased by 10 or 20% just simply due to the wettability of the water. More water was absorbed into the grain, the flour, and the yield increased. So these are all, as I say, direct indications of the wettability of activated water. So activated water is the closest to spring water, and these devices do exist, and you can actually, if you move, you take them with you. So getting water right was one of the first things that I did when I made my home sustainable. I got the water right, and as a result, I use 30% less water in my garden. And what it does also, it splits the harmful molecules into subatomic particles. So the chlorine, bacteria particles get split because of the frequencies of paramagnetic rock dust, the rock quartz, and the orgonite and the magnets. Okay, so these devices have been around for a long time, and then probably 3 or 4, 5 or 6 models in Germany as well. So very important, getting back to the original topic about restructuring ourselves naturally, or keeping our structure, keeping our golden mean structure naturally. So we've been through quite a lot of things, the food, the water, the sun, the nature, the earth, the dwelling, the space that we're in. Very, very, very important in terms of keeping our golden mean structure, our scalar wave, our quantum space. Nature knows this automatically, and we have to relearn this. And I think the bombardment of toxins and the effect it has on our immune system and our DNA is more than any body can cope with at the moment. And that's why we do need to help the body and do the liver cleanses and do the saunas. The ancients knew, they saunaed. They would develop a huge pit, and everybody would go in there and sweat and come out and go back in there and sweat. They knew all about this. It's not new. So we're not doing it. There's things we don't do. There's things like we don't have fermented food every time we eat. Ancients did that. There was always some form across the cultures of some sort of fermented food when they ate, to number one, help digestion, but number two, replace the beneficial bacteria, fungi, and yeasts. So again, in this period right now, we want to reinforce our immune system. We need to have fermented products in us, the beneficial ones. The probiotic that I use, the microbiome reset, it's beautiful. 80 to 100 live strains, which will reshape themselves inside you according to your DNA print. Exactly what you need. Your microbiome is different to anyone else's. Okay, so that's intelligent enough to do that. And by doing that, of course, we're reducing the workload again on the immune system, because we're giving the body beneficial bacteria, fungi, and yeasts to do what they need to do, to even imprint on our DNA, because 99% of our DNA is made up of microbial DNA. So these are all helpful things that come in and assist the body to keep the structure, to keep our strength, so that we're not a host for infections, so that we can continue the human species with a really strong DNA that's actually evolving as opposed to devolving. that kind of thing. And I'm fanatical about this. This is what we need to be focusing on. We seriously do. The paramagnetic rock, I mean, this is amazing. And if anybody's gone to ancient sites and indulge themselves in that, and you take your compass, even on your cell phone, and you walk past these magnetic rocks, what happens is you lose the Earth's magnetic attraction, and the compass becomes limp. It has no point. It has no focus at all, because you're now dealing with the cosmic paramagnetic field, if I can put it that way. South Africa has loads of paramagnetic rockets, even lying on the side of the road. So when we go to Lesotho and we go to where the volcano sites are, and we mine out the paramagnetic rock, nothing happens to the rock. It's just rock, right? Yes, it does have calcium, magnesium, and wonderful, wonderful minerals, but those are for plants. So plants will absorb those. They're in the form that the plant will then transmute it into the form that we can then absorb it and use it. But it's an inert calcium and magnesium. So when we take rock dust, I like to do a teaspoon a day to protect my body. It's not for the absorption of those minerals at all. It's for the paramagnetic field of the little soil, rock particles, if you like. Okay, remember I told you it's negative to start with, but now we've got magnetism added to it. So what it does is it magnetizes and pulls out the wrongly charged matter from the body. Automatically, it will alkalinize the body, step by step by step. Yeah.
I just asked, is that the zeolite you're talking
Yes.
about?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Exactly, that's exactly the zeolite. You all know what that looks like. It's on the website. On my website, you can go and see these things I'm talking about. The microbiome reset, the paramagnetic rock, the Ormus Gold, which I've spoken about, the stress defense shield, which is these highly nutrient dense, very quick, tight spin electron foods, which we need to eat. It's not about quantity, it's about quality. So paramagnetic rock will literally line the gastrointestinal tract for us. And as the liver dumps toxins, it will grab them. As the uric acid gets dumped, it grabs it. Wonderful for gouty people. And then, as I said to you, sequentially, one by one, the organs start becoming detoxed. The blood becomes alkaline. And this is all so freely available and easy to do. And rock dust is not an expensive item. It's just not an expensive item. So we actually have, from nature's pharmacy with an F, if you like, everything at our disposal right here and now. We know about it. We just need to do it to actually protect ourselves and against whatever nasties are available, quite frankly, and keep the life force, keep the R value, the resistance value on the ski or the adductor device healthy. That's how we do it. We clear, and then when we've cleared that, and we're in alignment completely, the subconscious, the conscious, and the superconscious are in very tight arrangement. So we can dip into our subconscious very quickly, very easily, and the superconsciousness, and that means we're in the universal flow. That means we're in the morphogenic field from where we came, and you can go and Google all of that. The quantum field is space is in the morphogenic field. And Lynn McTaggart's a good one. She's written many books at the moment. She talks a lot about Ormus and how it unravels the DNA strand, what they're finding. And I talked about that too. So it's all about realigning ourselves, not even back to nature, back to where we've come from. And in that space, and with that energy around us, we can then, I think, operate as very clear therapists and protect ourselves first. So most important, put the oxygen mask on yourself first, clean yourself first. And that's been about 90 minutes or so. So Frida and Jenny, Laura, Leonie, hi, even Carol Ann as well. Anything to comment so far from what I've presented? Is it making sense to you?
Yes, absolutely. And also there's on the telomeres that you can also activate then for that.
Thank you, Frida. Thank you. Talk some more.
No, I use every day on my clients when I work on them, because that's a very good one to help them or assist them, getting where they should be quicker.
Right. So now let's talk about the quantum device. Frida's opened it up beautifully, right? Yes, Laura?
I just wanted to say thanks, Frida. I forgot about that. We tend to get in our own little groove and do what we do and have great success. But somebody else says something and you go, oh, got to remember that too.
So, Laura, thanks. Now, when we look at the matrix, you always see chromosome damage just about every time. So this gives us that golden opportunity to, people say, and I mean, I just really bite my tongue. I mean, there's people doing DNA analyses and things like that. And they're doing such a small amount of the DNA analysis, and they're telling you, oh, you can never have this again in your life. You can never eat that again in life. You missing this, you missing that. That's just bunk. Straightforward bunk, all right? There's a reason that we got to the stage that we have with our genetic structure and our chromosomes, and there's a reason that we can get out of it. If we restructure our body, we will restructure our chromosomes and our genetic makeup, our DNA and RNA, and that's what I'm all about. And the quantum skill is doing that. It's basically taking our scalar structure and it's fixing it for us. It's removing all the debris, it's removing all the glitches, realigning us, and you can measure that with the GEV machine, completely separate to Skio. You can see what happens to the aura. It's not makeup. It's absolutely measured by an independent device. And by the way, that water activator is also measured by the GEV machine as well. The aura around the person and also the alignment of the chakras. Anyway, just getting back to the quantum Skio now, this is where we're absolutely blessed, because just about all these products I've talked about are on the device in any event. So you can pull them in the quantum field from the matrix. It will even suggest it for people. So then you know for sure. If you see plasma water and you see acidophilus and all these things, you know what they need on an ongoing basis, because the Skio frequencies will work, but we need to reinforce, otherwise they must come back for more Skios, if it's practical for the person. So Frida, I'm with you. I use that DNA, the DNA panel just about every single time, because it takes you there. It'll be a meridian, it'll be a trivector, it'll be DNA. I don't miss it, not for anything. And that is where I do epigenetics and I do ancestral clearing. Right then and there, we tune in and we restructure the epigenetics. I've got heightened awareness to it. I had 2 elderly parents. I've got 1 elderly parent now, but I saw epigenetics. I saw myself in them. I saw the patterns I was repeating, physically, neurologically, emotionally, and spiritually. I saw it. I lived it. And I think Bruce Lipton and stuff, they're all onto this right now. So when I'm in that panel is when I do the ancestral clearing, and do it how you want to do it. There's no way. You do it how you need to do it. We get the spiral right for the ancestors as well. It's absolutely brilliant. So I'm a little bit off topic, but not totally, because we can remove that, the genetic emotional baggage, the immune system is going to be stronger. The DNA will be stronger. And yes, you can then work on those telomeres, and it runs in the background for you beautifully whilst you're doing your, whilst you're working with the person. Frida and Laura and Jenny, point us to some more immunity boosting sections on the Skio, please, on the software.
Of course, there's the blood cleanse and immune stimulation under dark field analysis.
Thanks. So we did a bit of that last night on our talk, and I'll be posting that as well. So we can actually work there, and we can work also on the stem cells in the dark field. So we have these frequencies totally available, and we are directed by the subconscious of the patient every time. The amount, the frequency that they're receiving, the amount of time that they're receiving, and they have selected it. So I always tell my patients, unfortunately, I can't keep pressing the keyboard and make you into that avatar, but we can work with your subconscious and, you know, work in that space. Same as the DNA. I mean, we can't make people to hold a dimensional DNA, if you like, that's not part of their subconscious. That's what I love about the Skio. I just love that calibration because I'm safe. And I love also that it's not me and my belief coming through. It's directly from the patient or the client sitting there. So we've got those at our disposal as well. And simply the detoxification panel, once those toxins are out, the body can restore itself. And I'm always on about that. Once we've supplied the right nutrients, the cell can raise its vitality and restore itself as well. Any more on what we can do for the, yes, Jenny?
Jane, a few years ago, there was a genetics professor at the Central University of Technology in Bloem. I was there for a radiography conference, and his talk was called Telomere Tales. And this is just totally it's just a little fun thing that he said. He said the best thing that you can do for your genes is to dance.
Wow. Okay.
That's what he said. That's just, he says, just one of the best things you can do. So I do the Zumba classes at the gym, and whenever they teach us something new, and the old part of me wants to go, oh, can we just stick to the old stuff that we know, that we do well? Then I think of that genetics professor who, you know, learning that new dance is just the best thing. Just something totally by the by.
No, not at all. Completely relevant and on point. Thanks for sharing, Jenny. What does movement do? Okay, so it gets the blood flowing, and it gives us the ability to detoxify. Once we're detoxifying, sorry, I was just seeing if there was anyone I had to add. Once we're detoxifying, the immune system and the DNA and the telomeres can all restore. You see, once we take the workload off the immune system on an all everyday things it has to fight, it can restore. Plus movement, like yoga. The big deal about yoga is the oxygen. The oxygen that we breathe. We start breathing, and this is my last main point. When we're breathing, we're bringing in loads of oxygen. That's what we need. We don't die from lack of breath of oxygen. We die from the inability to detoxify ourselves, the inability to have enough oxygen to detoxify. That is the issue about oxygen. So when we're dancing and breathing and moving, the blood circulation is moving, which can remove wastes and everything, very important, and bring the oxygen to the cells. The issue is the breath. It's the breathing. It's getting that oxygen right in here. And we need to breathe right down to the bottom of the lungs. We need to breathe right in very, very deeply, and then very long out. Those long, long breaths out until you've expelled all of it, all of the carbon dioxide, all of the waste out of the body. The body can reestablish its alkalinity, and it continues to do proper cell metabolism and create energy for us. So breathing is critical, and we talked about that last night on the also on the device, where you see the sodium potassium pump, and that will tell you straight away together with the hydrochloric acid that they're not breathing out. And that then starts having an effect. It creates open mouth breathing, it creates sinuses, it creates tension here to the ears. And a dentist told me this, we can call him in one day, Dr. Reddy. And then it's a backward, from your head to your toe, every single bone starts getting affected and it starts constricting. And that's often the problem with bones. It's our breath. So I hope I've given you some valuable, really valuable, natural things to do to get ourselves in alignment. It's actually very easy. And I just believe that the ancient sages did all this. I mean, my chickens, their bare feet are on the sill as long as they're awake. And they know what time they need to go and sleep. And it's the same time every single day. And if I walk in there with food and they're already on their perches, they don't jump down. They're not going to, because their body clock's closed. That's not going to take their food, and they know that. So we can really take our cues from nature and see all of this. But once again, I've loved having all of you here. I'm totally blessed. And let's keep up with our educational talks and learning from each other. And thank you so much for all your contributions. Have a blessed day. And
thank you again, Jane.
Have a structured day.
Thank you. Okay. Bless you too.
And then ciao, Jenny. Bye.